Hey guys, what's going on? Migan here. All right, answering questions from my school community. All right, so the question is, guys, ask me one question about fighting, self-defense, and violence. Let's see. Looking at the poll here. All right. Number one from Seago. Guys, I'm capable of extreme violence. Okay, he put a troll post, and he put a rabbit behind the line. But anyway, um, he's not really trolling. He's level 7, so clearly he provides a lot of value. But let's see. By the way, the poll for those of you guys who can't see the screen, the poll was one, I'm capable of extreme violence, quote unquote, self defense. And the second option was, I'm not capable of extreme violence. And it was 40 to 23. Okay, we'll see. And I explain why that poll was there later. First question is from Modi Labi. Where should I start if I want to learn to fight if I already train 4 times a week? So I don't think I have much time. Well, first of all, get your priorities in order, right? I say this all the time, guys. The reason why we lift weights, the reason why we work out as men, right? If we're honest with ourselves, is why, right? If you're honest with yourself, think about it. Most men who work out is because they want to look good for the ladies, right? There's other reasons. There's people who want to just be better at fighting, people who want to be good at sports, whatever. But one of the main reasons men work out across the world is because of female attraction, right? So now the next question is, why do women like men who, who are in shape, right? If you look at the research, if you look at all the studies done on women and sexual attraction and why they like more muscular, lean men, whatever, what is the conclusion every time? It is because having a good physique signals fighting ability. I repeat, the reason why women like muscular men, not overly muscular, of course, but you know what I'm talking about, like the nice, you know, lean physique, is because subconsciously in the back of their brains, right, the woman doesn't even know it most of the time, it signals fighting ability, meaning he's going to be a good protector, good provider, right? Because of evolution. At the end of the day, everything's about evolutionary psychology. If you don't understand evolutionary biology, you don't understand yourself or women or whatever. So think about it for a second. If the reason why men work out is because women like muscular men, and women like muscular men because it signals fighting ability, right? Because of the way women evolved, they evolved in a very dangerous, period in time where they were literally at the mercy of rapists. I can't say the word for obvious reasons at any moment. And also that when they have kids, they have to worry about who's going to protect, who's going to kill the predators, and blah 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 blah. Right. So if that's the end goal, which is fighting ability, why would you sacrifice learning to fight for building muscle when the whole point of building muscle and getting strong is because it translates into fighting ability? I have a whole course in my school community that's coming up soon, right? I've been working on it for months, where I explain why it's so important in the dating market and even for life as a man for men to be able to fight and have a physique, right? Fighting, being able to defend yourself and potentially kill somebody else was paramount in the evolution of males. We know this because so many studies have been done on that, right? Fighting ability is one of the biggest predictors of how many kids you have across the world. Obviously, there's always exceptions, there's always outliers, but they don't disprove the rule. Anyway, it's the number one predictor of number of mates, number of kids, uh, in some cases, status. There's another thing that it predicts, I forgot, but it's related to sex, right? And that's the reason why we have sexual dimorphism. That's the reason why men are bigger than women. It's the reason why men are stronger than women, even if they don't train. That's the reason why testosterone increases, all the things that increase fighting ability when a boy enters puberty. It's the same reason why fucking male lions have the mane. And it's the reason why gorillas, male gorillas, are bigger than female gorillas. In all tournament species, all polygamous species, right, where fighting is crucial for a male to pass on the genes, men are bigger than women because of testosterone. I should say males are bigger than females, right? So it all goes down to fighting ability. So to answer your question, you say I want to learn to fight, but I already train 4 times a week. I'm not gonna have time. Prioritize fighting first. The goal of training, lifting weights and building a great physique and having good VO2 max is to make you a better fighter, right? So prioritize fighting first. All right, next, and I'm glad you mentioned your stats. So I would say learn fighting. I would say depending on how much how good you are. I would say at least 2 or 3 times a week, and then on your off days, use that to lift weights so you get better at whatever martial art you're training at. Right. So the goal of lifting weights is to supplement your martial art, not the other way around. So let's say your martial art is wrestling. Well, guess what? Your workout program should be tailored towards making you a better wrestler, right? A lot of quads and hams movements, a lot of back movements. You know, obviously some chest, but it's mainly a lot of pulling. Wrestling's a lot of pulling, so a lot of back work, grip work. If your main martial art is Muay Thai or some shit, right? A lot of your training should be focused on explosive power for kicking, right? So glute work, oblique work, ab work, you know, training your back for clinching and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's the other way around. Next, Fabian, my nigga. I was thinking about Marcus Crassus from the show Spartacus. He was businessman, one of the richest in Rome, from what I remember, but he made himself very effective in military strategy and combat by training. I assume we should be like him, focus on our IKIGAI and be effective in self-defense. I admire both Marcus Crassus and Spartacus season war today. And by the way, for those of you guys who don't know, he just gave me goosebumps because Spartacus is my number one TV show of all time, literally of all time. Just like you guys know, I'm a big nerd. Lord of the Rings is my favorite movie of all time. Dragon Ball Z is my favorite anime of all time. But as far as TV show, you know, Spartacus by far. It's not even close. If you haven't watched Spartacus, guys, you are missing out on life. But then again, I'm also a military history nerd, so I could see why I'm biased. So yes, I assume every man. If you look at the triple S score, what is the first letter? Security, right? My triple S score model, which is what you need to obviously be effective in dating and in life in general. What is security? It breaks down into financial security and physical security, right? So yes, you should be able to make a lot of money, of course, but you should also learn how to defend yourself because ultimately that's the purpose of men. It's crazy how most men walk around today and not even knowing what the purpose of a man is. Think about that for a second. Most men walk around today not even knowing what the general purpose of men, meaning adult male humans, is. If you're watching this video right now, do you even know what the purpose of a man is in general? I'm not talking about your individual purpose as an individual, just in general, across all cultures, across history. Do you guys know what it is? Do you guys know what men even exist? Right? The number one purpose, it's not just giving, different, chromosomes and different set of genes to the female, which obviously is important. The, you know, but there's many ways, life has found to get around that, right? The number one purpose of men is to complement women, meaning to be strong in the areas that they are weak. Meaning, the number one purpose of men is fighting. Yes, it is violence. It is aggression. The research on that is overwhelming. Your number one goal as a man is to be able to protect and provide the female so that she can raise a child. Because when a woman is pregnant, she becomes one of the weakest creatures on earth. Because now she has to sacrifice everything in exchange for that child. And because human babies are so freaking weak for so long, they're a handicap to the female. So that's why I would say if you want to understand yourself, you have to first understand women. In order to understand women, you have to understand babies, right? So it goes backwards. If you don't understand babies, you will never understand women. And if you don't understand women, you will never understand yourself because you literally exist to complement the female so that she can, pass on, continue the human race through fuck ass babies, right? And what is the one thing that men, remember I told you guys, in order to complement something, you have to be able to do something that that thing cannot do and vice versa, right? What is the number one thing that women cannot do when they have a baby? They cannot protect themselves efficiently. They cannot provide for themselves efficiently, right? So that's why men in all cultures, are ranked and valued based on what? Based on what? Based on the ability to fight, provide, protect. See? So, yes, if you're a man, and that's why when I created the Triple S score, the very first letter S was security, money, and obviously fighting ability. Right? Those are the first two things. In fact, that's why women like tall men. The studies have been done on this. The reason why women like tall men is not because of just height. It's because subconsciously their brain thinks, right, because of evolution, their brain associates height with fighting ability. We know this because when you use statistical measures to separate height from fighting ability, the sexual attraction of tall men goes to shit. I posted that study many times. 70% of a man's sexual attraction to a female, right, based on just, if she just looks at his body, 70% of that, right, is linked to his fighting ability, his upper body strength, which is insane. 70% in statistics, explaining the variance is insanely hard to find in statistics. Right? And when you add height to the equation, it only adds another 10%. See? So yeah, as a man, your purpose is to be. That's what the poll started off with. How capable are you of of defending yourself, of fighting, of deploying violence? That's the goal of a man. And again, you don't believe me? Go right ahead, do the research, study history, study science. That's all I do, guys. I study history, I study science, and I look at the real world, and I throw in my experience, and I come with conclusions. That's why I'm ahead of the fucking curve all the time. Because I'm objective. I'm not afraid to say when I'm wrong. I'm not afraid to keep my mind open. So yes, I think you should be like those men. And if you think about it, all the great men in history that we look up to, they were warriors, right? There's some exceptions, but even the politicians, they had armies, so they're still capable of violence. You might think, oh, well, I know so and so, this person is rich and he doesn't know how to fight. Yeah, but he has an army of men who, at the snap of his finger, can wipe out a nation. What the fuck? Think about that for a second. That's still huge, quote unquote, fighting ability. Next, let's see. So yeah, so hopefully you guys learn a lot from this. As a man, that should be your number one goal, is to be able to provide security through fighting and obviously finances. Next, Brendan Galley, does being strong as fuck and capable of channeling anger effectively mean being capable of extreme violence? Let me see. What does being strong, capable of channeling anger, even if you haven't particularly trained a combat sport but wrestle with your friends, compete daily, etc.? No, no. This is objective. When I say, are you capable of violence, I'm referring to actual violence, right? Just being strong, obviously it helps, right? Being strong helps, right? Helps with leverage, right? It's something that's actually gonna amplify your technique and your skills. But at the end of the day, you have to be able to actually get the job done. You know, so now if you haven't trained a combat sport, you could still defend yourself as long as you're going against a weak person. Or if you're going against the average man, yeah, you'll have an advantage because you're strong. But most of the time, criminals are not the average man. Most of the time, criminals are, if you look at most criminals, especially violent criminals, a lot of times they're either strong or they're lean, they have that crack ass strength. Look at most criminals or most rapists, most people that break into homes, they're not the average out of shape American. Right? So at some point, yes, being strong will help you against an average guy who can't fight, but you have to be able to, I tell everybody, I say every man should be trained enough not to be some UFC fighter or whatever. No, I would get destroyed by even an amateur MMA fighter, whatever, right? Most men should be able to fight at least two assailants, right? At least two. That's it. That's why I favor mass more than just being this super lean whatever that or not, because that will help you in a one-on-one battle. But against two men, you need size, right? Even against one, you need size, right? Let's be real. In the animal kingdom, size is king. Size is king, and humans are part of the animal kingdom. There's a reason why we have weight classes in boxing and wrestling and Greco-Roman freestyle, MMA, whatever. Think about it. We don't have jiu-jitsu classes in UFC. We don't have boxing classes. We don't separate Ilya Topuria from fucking Charles Oliveira and say, oh well, da, da, da. No, right? But yet we have weight classes. What does that tell you guys? That tells you that based on the overwhelming data, size is king. But a lot of morons out there have watched so much anime and have watched so many fucking flyweight fights that they think that, oh yeah, size is not a big deal. Yeah, 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 yeah. You are insane. Size is everything in the fight. The only time size doesn't matter is when there's an extreme difference in skill. But how common is that? How common is it for a 6'2" person to run into Mighty Mouse in the street, right? Demetrius Johnson. So that gave you guys the illusion that, oh yeah, size doesn't matter because look, Demetrius Johnson and TJ Dillashaw can beat, this guy or this bodybuilder. Yeah, but that's not, you're looking at the extremes. You're looking at the best fighters in the world, you know? Or you might see a video where a trained jiu-jitsu fighter is beating a buff roided guy. That's still extreme because how many trained jiu-jitsu fighters are walking around robbing people, right? So size is king, right? So it will still give you an advantage, but I would say, you want to be ready just in case the person you're fighting knows a little something, is in shape, is somewhat strong, or might have crackhead strength, and you always want to be ready to fight two people, always, right? So that's my advice for me. And it's also going to help with confidence. Trust me, I cannot stress this enough. And there's also studies on this that a lot of our anxiety can be explained by upper body strength. Once again, see, goes right back to sexual dimorphism. A lot of a person's anxiety can be explained by their fighting ability, which can be measured by upper body strength. So the stronger you are on average, the more jacked you are on average, believe it or not, on average, the lower your anxiety because you walk through the world knowing that you are capable of violence. And in return, it also makes you less violent because when you know that you can defend yourself and protect yourself, you're less anxious, you're less impulsive, you're more calm, you have more GABA, right? So you're calmer. That's why a lot of trained fighters actually diffuse situations. They don't want to fight because they know they're so calm. They can do the math in their head and be like, "Oh my God, I could just his solar plexus is right there, his neck is right there. I could do this, I could do that. Oh my God, this guy, in 3 minutes, I could turn him into jelly." So they're calm enough to do that analysis because they're so capable of violence. And in return, they don't deploy the violence because they know, oh my God, I might go to jail. So actually being strong, being a good fighter actually makes it so that you're actually less violent. You know what I mean? So Brandon, to answer your question, you still got to learn the basics. Like I told you guys, I my whole life, because I was obsessed with fighting because of my whole trauma and getting bullied and all that stuff, I try to learn everything. Combined with ADHD, of course, as a kid, I try to learn everything. Wasted my time. First of all, I started with Taekwondo. I told you guys when I was like 8 years old. Forgot the exact number. Started with Taekwondo. Got a rush when I like won a tournament. But I didn't really win a tournament. I won a fight. And then it changed my life. And then eventually I told you guys the whole bully story when I stood up to him, whatever. So one of the best things I could tell you guys is just learn 3 basic things. You don't have to be an expert. I'm not an expert fighter. I could fuck somebody up, but I'm not an expert fighter. I'm not going to sit there and act like whatever. But that's not what I train for. I train to be able to defend myself from bullies and from criminals. That's it. If that criminal happens to know, if that criminal happens to be a trained fighter, I'm just fucked. But that's also why I have the fucking Ruger Max 9. See, you gotta have the backup plan, right? Pull out the Glock. But every man, in my opinion, should learn just 3 basic things: learn a striking sport, a striking combat sport, a grappling, to be specific, wrestling, right, and then a ground game. That's it. You just need those 3. A good striking martial art, could be boxing, could be Muay Thai, whatever, right? A good wrestling martial art, right? Obviously, freestyle is better than Greco-Roman in my opinion, right? For different reasons. And a good ground game. In that case, it's only Jiu-Jitsu, right? I mean, like, it's king. You don't have to be an expert at all 3. You just have to be above average. This way you could strike, because every fight starts on the feet. You could strike with multiple people, right? If somebody grabs you, you know exactly what to do, or you know how to prevent being grabbed. Because what good is your striking if somebody grabs you, right? And then number 3, if for whatever reason, because most fights start on the feet but end on the ground, somebody gets you to the ground, you know how to navigate the situation. But you gotta learn all 3. I can't stand the guys who only learn jiu-jitsu and like, oh yeah, I know jiu-jitsu. I'm like, yeah, but now you're useless against 2 people. Yeah, good job on your jiu-jitsu. They don't think about that, right? Jiu-jitsu makes you useless against 2 or 3 people. Right? If 3 people break into your house while you have your wife and kids, what are you gonna do? Grab one and put them in a fucking rear naked choke, or try to do a triangle or a kimura? Like what? The other 2 are just gonna stump your head out. Right? So jiu-jitsu, to me, is so overrated because even though it's amazing in one-on-one, don't get me wrong, jiu-jitsu is amazing in one-on-one, right? But guys like me who grew up surrounded by bullies in the hood in New York City, whatever, we know how useless jiu-jitsu is against 2, 3 people. It's so useless. Right? When we playing basketball and 3 Bloods or Crips come up and try to bully you, jiu-jitsu is the most useless thing. Guess what helped me? Boxing. So so you still want to learn all 3, but I don't want you guys to just learn 1 and think that that's all you need, right? Man, I spent a long time answering that. So yes, please learn an actual combat sport. Ideally, learn 3. Next, Jill, and like I said, learn just the basics, right? Like even me, jiu-jitsu, I told you, I never really went for the belts and all that stuff. I just wanted to learn the basics. How do I get out of a fucking chokehold? How do I get out of a submission? How do I submit someone? Done. Next, 170 centimeter, 66 kg, 19% body fat, 18.5 FMI, age 22. You definitely got to increase your FMI, and your body fat is too high for the FMI. That is not good. 19% body fat at only 18.5 FMI. That is not good, brother. My goal is to reach 78 kgs by the end of winter, March. The question is, what is the best sport for self-defense? to build confidence and high triple S score. Samuel Enshedden said MMA, but if you're not tough enough, yeah, go for BJJ boxing. Okay, so that's kind of what I was saying earlier. The best sport for self-defense, in my opinion, obviously MMA is always going to be number one, right? But think about it. MMA is not a martial art. MMA is a combination of martial arts. So it's called mixed martial arts, right? So if there's an MMA gym, great, go for it. If there's pick, guys, because I'm all about speed, right? Pick whatever has the least, right? Has the path of least resistance. Meaning pick whatever combat sport, whatever martial law, whatever is the closest to you and is more affordable to you. Because life as a man, I repeat, is all about speed. Speed, speed, speed. Why? Because power is equal to force and velocity. Work over time. We can control force. We can control work. We cannot control time. You cannot reduce time to zero, right? And once you lose time, you don't get it back. So that makes it the number one constraint in the power equation, right? It's all about speed. So whenever you're trying to make a decision, right, pick whatever's going to give you the fastest result, right, with the least amount of effort. So when people ask me what's the best sport, I'm like, it depends on what's the closest to you. Because I'd rather have you, for example, Muay Thai is better than boxing in my opinion, right? I'm a sucker for Muay Thai. Muay Thai is better than boxing, but let's say it would take you 6 months before you start Muay Thai because of distance or money or whatever, but it's a boxing gym a block away. Guess what I would tell you then? I would tell you, motherfucker, now the best martial art for you is boxing. And then you're going to be like, well, Migan, I thought you said Muay Thai was better. And I'm going to smack you like, shut up. No, it's all about speed. I'd rather have you learn boxing now so that in 6 months when you're ready to start Muay Thai, at least you learn something that would carry over to Muay Thai. See? So the best, I hate the question, what's the best martial art? Like, based on what? Based on what? It depends on the criteria. Right? So for me, the number one criteria is speed. The best martial art is the one that you will learn the fastest given your current resources. Right? So look at your budget, look at where you could start as soon as possible, look what's closest to you, and then start there. You could always change your mind. Right? Now let's say there's no constraint. Let's say there's no constraint. Time is not an issue, speed is not an issue, money is not an issue, effort is not an issue, whatever, all else equal, then yeah. In that case, what I do is I always break up martial arts into three categories, right? Striking, wrestling, ground game, right? Best striking is between boxing and Muay Thai, right? Depending on the situation, of course, right? If I have to pick one, it would definitely be Muay Thai, right? And the reason why I put boxing up there is because holy shit, boxing is so OP. Boxing is one of the most underrated martial arts out there, believe it or not. And it's also so easy to learn, you know. You can literally learn it at home. Next, wrestling. Just learn, you know. I say wrestling, but it's, you know, I also put judo there. It's really grappling, right? So for grappling, standing grappling, I should say, learn either judo or freestyle wrestling. Again, just the basics. Right? Don't waste your time with Greco-Roman, right? Because I want you guys to actually be able to, you know, use every weapon available to you. Grab the legs, whatever. And then the third one, like I said, the third one is obviously ground game, right? Grappling / ground, and that would be Jiu-Jitsu. So learn all three, man. Learn all three. Let's see. So that's, to me, that's the best sport. Now, of course, MMA combines all of that. But not everybody has the MMA gym around them. Next, Jeet Chavda. Hi, Migan. I'm 5'3", 42 kg, 18 years old. I'm a midget. What would be the best move possible in my situation to become intimidating and showcase competitive ability? Which martial arts would be better for me? Do I need to shave my head and get some scars or some shit? Thanks. Let's see. Well, first, you know, I'll be brutally honest with you. If you're 5'3", I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Life would be extremely hard for you, right? 'Cause I'm not gonna sit there. That's one of the things. As much as I said black. As much as I bash the black pill movement, I'm objective at the same time, right? They have some things right. They have some things wrong, just like every other movement. Right? Even me, I got a lot of stuff wrong growing up. But one thing that is true is your life would be. I mean, I'm 5'7", and my life was fucking hard, right? I'm also ugly as fuck, so that didn't help. So 5'3", you definitely need to compensate. I'm not even gonna like sugarcoat it. You need to compensate. You need to do more to get the same amount that a 6'2" person needs to do. Right? A 6'3" person just has to do the bare minimum, basic social skills, basic income, and they walk into a room and then boom, because that's how powerful evolution is, right? We evolved to, you know, highly respect and be intimidated by tall people because of, obviously, think of common sense. To be a tall hunter back in the days, you have to have access to food, to protein, and you were a great fighter. So at 5'3", you gotta compensate. You gotta make money. I'm sorry, you gotta make money. You gotta work on your confidence, your social skills, right? Which I always say, to increase your confidence, you gotta have a long history of wins and history of losses in one field. Now, as far as to answer your question about martial arts, well, play to your strengths, right? Play to your strengths. So if you're short, you're gonna be quicker, right? You're gonna be more agile, right? So don't try to, you know, gravitate towards strength-based martial arts, right? Clearly, you're at a disadvantage, right? So learn jiu-jitsu, of course, because it's going to give you an advantage if you're short. Believe it or not, if you're short, you have an advantage in jiu-jitsu. I don't care what nobody says, right? Some people try to debate it. You have a huge advantage because you're just quicker, man. It's so easy for you to just move in and out of positions. You're hard to grab, you know. It's easy for you to escape stuff as long as, you know, somebody doesn't grab you in the wrong part. So learn jiu-jitsu. But like I said earlier, jiu-jitsu is useless in the 2v1, completely useless in the 2v1. So, you know, learn judo, right? Since you're small, try to learn martial arts that use the power, you know, use the opponent's momentum against them, right? But yeah, you know, that's what I recommend. As for striking, if you're short, well, you're not gonna have a lot of power in your kicks, right? You're also not gonna have a lot of range in your kicks, so you might as well start with boxing. Start with boxing. You can still learn Muay Thai. I mean, if you look at most Muay Thai fighters, they're short as fuck, right? From Thailand, but they also fight against short people, right? So you can still learn Muay Thai, but start with boxing, right? To take advantage of your speed. Because if you're short, you don't want to just stand there, right? In the Muay Thai stance, where it's so easy for somebody to grab you, right? You want to be able to be agile and constantly moving. So start with boxing, right? Short people, a short boxer, a short person who dedicated his life learning boxing is scary. Combine that with the jiu-jitsu, it's gonna be so hard to take you out. So that's my answer to you, right? Pick martial arts that, you know, play to your strengths, meaning speed, agility, you know, flexibility. Stay away from martial arts that rely on brute strength, right? Like freestyle wrestling is not going to do much for you. Next, let's see. Sitting Bulls say get a gun, bro. I believe every man should have a gun. The fuck? If it's legal in your country, you are a moron for not having a gun. I'm sorry. I don't care. If it is, I get into debates with friends and family all the time about this, but I'm sorry. If you don't have a gun and it's legal in your country, I don't care what your excuse is. You are an idiot. You're an idiot, and I'll tell you why. The gun is the ultimate equalizer, right? When I tell you guys to be capable of violence, it's for self-defense. It's not to be like, oh, look, I'm alpha. I know how to, you know, I'm capable of violence. No, it's for self-defense, right? You're not always gonna be able to knock a nigga out or put somebody in a fucking choke or whatever. No, we're not. It's not microchips here, guys. It's about defense, right? So have a gun. You know, I think everyone should have 3 weapons. Every man should have 3 weapons. I never leave my house without one of those 3, right? You should have a short range weapon, so like a knife, a switchblade, whatever, right? You should have a short range weapon in case the person is too close or you don't have time, right? You should have a long range weapon to keep the person away if you're being attacked by a crazy guy, you know, or whatever. And even an animal. Let's say you're on a hike and you see a fucking bear approaching. You're gonna try to wait till he gets close so you can stab him? Are you crazy? No, you need a long range weapon. So that's where the gun comes in. And number 3, you need something that will work around against multiple people. These are the 3 weapons I think every man, regardless of age, should have. A short range weapon, that's legal, of course. It could be brass knuckles, it could be a knife, ideally a knife. A long range weapon, whatever's legal in your country. If you can't use a gun, then use a fucking bear spray. I don't fucking care, right? And then a weapon that will equalize if you're going against 2, 3, 4 people, right? Because the knife is going to be useless against 3, 4, 5 people, right? For me, the gun checks 2 boxes. Willie checks all 3, but you know, you could hit someone in the head with a gun. But it checks at least 2 boxes, right? It's long range and it's the equalizer against multiple people. So that's why I think everyone should have a gun. But if you can, again, you guys get a spray. Don't feel like, oh no, it's feminine. Guys, cops have sprays for a reason, right? But yeah. I don't care if you gotta get a taser. I don't care what it is. Every man should be able to defend himself because, guys, there's nothing worse than being in a situation where you're surrounded by idiots, low IQ motherfuckers who wanna show off in front of the girl or want to hurt your girl or whatever, and then you literally cannot do anything. You at their mercy. That is one of the worst things that could happen to a man. And shame on you if it happens to you because you knew that the risk was there and you still went out there defenseless. Shame on you if that happens to you, especially if you're supposed to be protecting your loved ones and then they get hurt. Right? So when people tell me, "Oh, I don't need a gun, I don't need this," I'm like, okay, but what will you do after it happens to you? And they go, "Oh yeah, I might get a gun after that." So that means you're saying the cost of you buying a gun is not $500. It's not $1,000. The cost of you buying a gun is somebody close to you suffering. You're an idiot. See? Because that's what will make you get one. So yeah, I'm all about prevention, guys. I want you guys to be safe, man, because your whole life can change if you run into the wrong people. Next, Mike W. Is street fighting and sparring worth it, even if you can easily lose teeth, break nose, have brain damage? Because everyone say that fighting is a masculine thing, but at what cost? Guys, that is stupid. You should not engage into a street fight unless you have no other choice, right? That's why I keep saying you want to be capable of violence, right? But that doesn't mean that you want to fucking use that shit, right? That's also why I mentioned having the gun and the long range thing, whatever, right? The best fucking, you know, defense is a good offense. But the goal of the offense is defense, is to make people stay away from you. Right? So I don't think you should fight unless you have no other choice. Right? Like my situation, when I had to stand up to my bully in my, what was it, 13 or whatever, I didn't have a choice. You know, I was just sick and tired of being bullied. And I was like, all right. I went through my anime arc. I trained because the motherfucker was bullying me for years. And I was like, all right, I'm finally ready. Testosterone was pumping through my veins. Learn to fight, learn to box, learn to wrestle. So I was ready. But other than that, you know, those previous years, I used to just walk away, man, like a little bitch. I used to walk away every time he would bully me. I used to just walk away, you know, 'cause I couldn't do anything. You know, it was him, his fat ass, fucking huge Samoan looking brother or cousin, and you know how bullies are. They in New York, they're rarely alone. They're always in the gang. So I avoided until I was ready. You know, and that day when I was ready, even though he had all these people around him, I didn't give a fuck. I was ready. You know, and it changed my life forever. So avoid street fighting unless you can actually defend yourself, right? Don't do that whole my honor, my honor. Your honor is useless. You get your ass beat, your teeth knocked out, or worse, you die, right? Don't be afraid to back down and say, "You got this, you got this." You know. Now, if you cornered, uh, what you're not gonna get on your knees and beg? Hell no. Now, if you cornered, then yeah, fight. I'm sorry. If you cornered, then you gotta fight. But if you're not cornered, just live another day. Yes, it's shameful, but that's how a lot of armies were built. That's how a lot of empires were built, right? They knew. I mean, look at the Mongols. The Mongols conquered the world because they were not afraid to retreat when they lost. In fact, one of their greatest tactics was the feigned retreat. They were fake retreating and then they would come back. So don't be afraid to lose the battle if you're going to win the war long term. So to answer your question, street fighting is not worth it unless you have no other choice. Andy Young, okay, height 5'10", 206 pounds, 20% body fat, age 19. I strongly feel that I have built myself a warrior physique with decent strength, bench 250, front squat 320, deadlift 350. Oh shit, dude, maybe I was too harsh on you. Maybe you are 5'10", 200 pounds. I used to think he was capping, but yeah, see, you gave me more context. You gave me your lips. Okay, now that makes sense. So my bad, nigga, because these are impressive numbers. But anyway, I have zero MMA experience. I prefer a striking style of fighting. Where's the best place to start for me? Okay, so you have zero MMA. I prefer a striking style of fighting. Well, like I would say, play to your strengths, right? Play to your strengths, right? Because the best defense is a great offense, and also a good offense is, you know, good defense. They equal to each other. So, play to your strengths. You're a big dude, so you would be a monster at wrestling, right? So learn wrestling. Holy fuck, man, dude, a 5'10", 200 pound guy who has those lifts and learns wrestling. Are you insane? You would be so hard to take down, so hard, right? So hard to fight. Even if you suck at striking, as long as you protect your face, right, and your vitals, you just get close. It's like the scariest thing ever, right? It's like a fucking Macedonian phalanx just slowly approaching, and you know you can't do shit. All you gotta do is slowly approach, take some hits, right? Protect your liver, of course, and your chin, peekaboo style, and grab the motherfucker. So I would say start with wrestling because you would be a monster. I would probably run from you if I knew that you had those stats and you were a good wrestler. Start with wrestling. Always play to your strengths. But like I said, if that's not the closest thing to you, then go on to the next closest thing. Even though you prefer striking style, again, play to your strengths because it's not like you're fast and powerful, right? Striking is Striking will give you an advantage if you have speed and power, but if you're slow as fuck, you're just gonna gas out, right? So start with wrestling, and then that's gonna take care of the one of the three things I think every man should know, right? Standing grappling, ground grappling, and obviously standing striking. So do wrestling first. You're not gonna need jujitsu, but you might as well learn it in case you know you go up against a person who does have it, because it's gonna be so hard to get you to the ground. And as far as striking, obviously, like I said, I'm biased towards Muay Thai because it's so fucking complete and it's so deadly. But you can learn boxing. Pick one of the two. Next, Nate Sock did boxing for 2 years. Should I do kickboxing, MMA, judo, or taekwondo next? Okay, like I always say, right? It depends on what's the closest to you, because I'm all about speed, learning things as fast as possible. So, and also play to your strengths, right? So make that a 2x2 matrix, right? What are your strengths and what is the closest to you? You did boxing for 2 years, so that means you closer to mastering kickboxing than the rest, right? So you can move on to kickboxing. And as for speed, look out of those three, no, actually those four things that you listed, and pick whatever's the closest. To be honest, taekwondo sucks. I'm sorry. I did taekwondo, like I told you guys when I started. That was my first martial art. It sucks. It's so impractical. Obviously, a taekwondo expert would whoop my ass, but come on. Judo, definitely. Judo is fucking goated. Judo is absolutely goated. In fact, with people who have to learn a standing grappling combat sport, I pick judo. Judo's up there with wrestling. MMA is just everything mixed, so that's why I rarely put MMA in the rankings, because it's everything. So to answer your question, yes, play to your strengths, meaning you already know boxing, so move over to kickboxing or Muay Thai. And as far as grappling, yeah, judo, and definitely learn a little bit of jiu-jitsu. Next, Santiago Coro, any thoughts on using a tactical flashlight as a vision canceling tool to boost your wrestling and striking in a self-defense scenario, almost always at nighttime without having to deal with legal repercussions by using something like a gun? Absolutely. Absolutely. See? High IQ motherfucker. That's the example I told you guys earlier. You need, every man needs three weapons, right? A short-range weapon, a long-range weapon, and an equalizer, right? Something that works against 2, 3, multiple people. So that one could count as the long range. Blind a motherfucker. Guys, do not be afraid. Your life is more important than all of this. Oh, I want to be big and bad bullshit. Use flashlight, use bear spray, right? Use a taser, you know? Anyway, next, Alcatraz Warfare. Do you recommend switching to MMA after years of boxing for street self-defense? Is it worth it or is it a waste of time? Again, let's see. Do you recommend switching to MMA after years of boxing? Again, MMA is always going to be a yes, right? Simply because it's complete, right? It checks all three boxes: striking, standing grappling, ground, right? Ground game. So MMA is always going to be a yes for me. But like I said, it depends on speed. What's the closest to you, and what can you learn with the least amount of effort? So if an MMA gym is going to take you 3 months to get started, but there's a judo gym next to you, start with judo. As long as you're picking a good martial art. When I say the whole speed thing, I'm not saying you have to go and pick some fucking ninjutsu shit. No. I'm referring to the good martial arts. So yeah, as always, play to your strengths. So if you did years of boxing, assuming you have, all else equal, everything is close by, budget is not an issue. That means you're really good at boxing. Transition to the closest thing, which is Muay Thai or kickboxing. And no, it's never a waste of time. Never a waste of time. Next, Harrison. Lower body strength is obviously the most important thing, the most important strength for striking power, but what about grappling? How much does glutes, quads, hamstring strength help with ground game jiu-jitsu compared to upper body strength? Second question, since you said we could ask about politics and said the best political system is a meritocratic oligarchy, how do you think the oligarchs should be determined, chosen? Like who, what decides who fits the merits the most? To answer your first question, wait, what was it again? Lower body strength is most important for strong power. What about grappling? Yeah, it's super important for grappling. Simple. Think about it. And I'm assuming you're referring to standing grappling mainly, like wrestling. When is the last time you saw an elite wrestler in a high weight class? Of course, because I don't even care about low weight classes because they're not applicable to the real world. In the real world, a guy significantly bigger than you would destroy you unless you Mighty Mouse, right? Or unless you are obviously very very good at your combat sport. So, how many heavyweight wrestlers do you know with chicken legs? Right? They have monster quads, powerful hamstrings for a reason. Yes, so legs absolutely matter for grappling, standing grappling, that is. And even with jiu-jitsu, there's some moves that if you have strong legs, strong hips, very, very, very important. It's going to give you an advantage, right? Having powerful hips as well, it's going to help you if you grounding and pounding a motherfucker. You can't keeping them pinned. Khabib was a monster at that. It shows you the importance of lower body strength. Once he got on top of you, you were not getting up because he was so good at using his hips and his abs and everything to just keep you pinned. So very important. As far as the best political system for, you say, how should the oligarchs be determined? Based on merit, right? The goal of every nation is to have, number one, a strong military. That's number one. Every nation, let's say you had to start from scratch and build a nation from scratch. The most important thing history has shown us is to have a strong military. Because it doesn't matter how good your economy is, doesn't matter how good your morals and your legal system is. If a stronger nation wants to take over your shit, there's nothing you can do. History has shown this over and over again. That's why I keep saying there's no such thing as good and evil. It's just the strong and the weak. The strong take over, and then they rewrite the laws, and then they decide what's good and what's evil, right? So, how should the oligarchs be chosen? They should be chosen based on their ability to obviously give the nation a strong military, right? So based on their physical prowess, their strategic genius, right? Their understanding of economics and decision making and logistics and resource management. To me, that's how they should be chosen. I have no doubt about that. You do not want a nation ran by men who don't understand warfare. Else they have to suck dick to an ally who's good at warfare, right? They have to literally just bow down to the ally who's providing, who's complementing their lack of ability to defend themselves. So yeah, that's how I would choose the oligarchs. It's based on how good are you guys at violence. See, it's back to violence again. How good are you guys at warfare? I don't want to mention names, but look at what's happening in the world right now to a certain group of people who cannot defend themselves because their oppressor, quote unquote, is better equipped than them, right, at deploying violence. See, you guys know what I'm talking about. So yeah, at the end of the day, it's all about violence. It's all about military dominance. Adam, that's why I get mad when people complain about America. They're like, oh, why does America spend so much on the military? I'm like, you definitely didn't learn history, you dumb cunt. Anyway, next, Adam Lebroni. If my goal is to become a better overall fighter, be able to defend myself better, would you pick one martial art at a time and focus on that, or do multiple? So, even though I'm a big believer in picking one thing and going all in, right? What I would do is back to the three, right? Pick the three martial arts that you need to dominate, right? Or be good at, which is striking, grappling, standing, and ground game, right? Submissions. And again, speed, right? Look at the one that you're the closest to, becoming more than average, above average at. So let's say you, on a scale of 1 to 10, let's say you 5 out of 10 in boxing or Muay Thai, and you 2 out of 10 in Jiu-Jitsu, and you are 1 out of 10 in judo wrestling, which is standing grappling. What I would do is speed, right? What is the closest thing you close to being above average? Is boxing. So I would just start with boxing, become above average, because once you're above average at boxing, now you can devote more time to bringing up your weak link, right? Which is jiu-jitsu and, judo wrestling, right? So always try to level up first, become above average or something, prioritize that, and then when you're above average, you can relax and be like, okay, now let me bring up my weak parts, right? Because think about it, if you try to bring up jiu-jitsu or wrestling first, it will take you so much longer just to reach level 5, which is average, and let alone above average, right? So you're going to be a jack of all trades, master of none. Whereas if you focus on boxing, which is what you're the closest at in this example, at least you become good at one thing, right? So that's going to be your strongest offense, which also is a good defense. And then you have time to bring up the other. But I feel like every man should learn all three. Next, you see I'm doing jiu-jitsu, but wondering if I should start learning a striking sport along with it, or just focus on getting real good at grappling first and then that later. Yeah, so that just answered your question. If you're already above average at jiu-jitsu, you should definitely bring up striking, because like I said, jiu-jitsu is amazing against one person. It is terrible against 2 people. It's also terrible if the person has a knife, right? Unless you get really lucky, right, and grab him in a right context. But yeah, Jiu-Jitsu has been so overhyped, man. So overhyped. Don't get me wrong, it's an amazing martial art, but it's been so overhyped because of combat sports. People forget that combat sports are not real life. It's not real life fighting. That's not how real life works, man. Uh, Next, let's see. Also, people forget that in real life, like in MMA, Jiu-Jitsu dominates because there are rules, right? So it gives the illusion that Jiu-Jitsu is so much better than it is. There are rules in MMA. So if somebody pushes in the hold, you can't poke their eye, you can't bite them. So that makes Jiu-Jitsu so much. It makes it appear to be so much more effective than it is. In real life, you try to put a person in the hold, they'll just bite the fuck out of you. They'll poke your eye. They'll stab you. You know. Uh, Obviously, unless you're like in a rear naked choke or something. But anyway, so should I prioritize learning how to fight even though I'm going to lose some gains? Of course. Of course. Like I said earlier, the whole point of building muscle and being strong is to translate that into self-defense, you know? So you should be okay losing some gains if you can make you a better fighter. And you could always get the gains back, right? Once you learn how to fight, you could always build muscle back, right? Next, Aman Shah. From studying world history, oh God, this is a long. I said keep it short, guys. This is super long. What is wrong with you, bro? Let's see. From studying world history, it is clear that a common theme among those. I'm gonna read it super fast. It is clear that a common theme among those that rise to power is extreme delusions of grandeur, divine purpose, who shows other men commitment and devotion to sacrifice for that purpose, which naturally results in the followers respecting, thus installing them as a leader, quote unquote, the bravest man. The men become inspired and extremely loyal, forming a very resilient cohesion and hive mind to the cause that they will suffer together and die for it and their brothers, like the concept of thoughtlessly jumping on a grenade to save your comrades. Due to perceived honor in the mission of this purpose, which is further fueled by, bruh, come on. I admire the fact that you know history and you seem intelligent, but come on, you're writing so many unnecessary words, and this is so long. Look how everybody else was quick and short and to the point. Learn to condense your thoughts, bro. Anyway, such as due to perceived honor and the mission of this purpose, which is further fueled by no option for fight, such as Alexander the Great burning the boats. My retention rate is probably getting crushed even more than it normally is right now. People are like, oh, I'm clicking off of this. But anyway, however, I'm gonna keep reading, hoping that eventually this ends well. This story here ends well. I'm hoping that you end this with a bomb question. If you end this with a stupid ass question, like, oh, how many cups should I eat? I will lose my shit. However, in maintaining this cohesive force capable of conquering the world, that develop extremely strange rituals and break societal rules, norms ranging from grand funerals where they might eat pieces of the fallen, all the way to extreme taboos like child sacrifice or extremely perverse sexual activities. Common among elitist circles, even today, and their unity and secrecy in these activities tightens their bond as much as loyalty. Bruh, you know I got ADHD and you writing this fucking book, man. Oh my goodness, you lucky sunk cost fallacies kicking in. And their unity and secrecy in these activities tightens their bond as much as loyalty can exist among men, even if they had all come from different backgrounds. All of these principles and concepts were seen in the Mongol hordes, correct? The Ottoman Janissaries, yep, the Aztecs, Roman legions, Spartan hoplites, and samurai. I wish I could go far more in depth, but I don't want to make this an essay. Bitch, you already did. To respect your time, you already did not. But my question ultimately is it actually possible to obtain true power, even if your intentions are to do good with that power, without transgression of the rules, or is being evil truly the cost to absolutely triumph in this world? I understand that morality is relative, but I want to hear your stance on this as you are someone I respect, and I know you study these subjects too. And I'm talking about the world conquering type of power, not the typical power and status ambitions of the average man. Oh my God. The only reason why I kept reading is because you tickled my fancy when you started mentioning history and conquerors. So I see what you were doing, fucking manipulating me. I nerd out about shit like that. But anyway, so to answer your question quickly is it is impossible to amass that kind of power, the power that Alexander the Great had, and even Muhammad the Prophet, and Julius Caesar and Hannibal Barca. It is impossible. I repeat, it is impossible to amass that kind of power without being evil. Yep, I know I'm gonna get crucified, whatever, but fuck you. Facts don't care about your feelings. It is impossible simply because one, there's the biology part of it, right? These guys were high T men, and T makes men obsessed with status. And once men have power, right, and they're obsessed with that power, that status, they will do almost everything to keep it. That's why even men with good intentions eventually end up doing fucked up things when they, obtain power. It's because once you have power, you're obsessed with keeping it, right? And once you're at power, everyone is coming for you. And everyone thinks that, oh, yeah, if I was a ruler, I'd make the right choice. You are so arrogant. You are so arrogant. People don't understand how complex decision making is, how complicated politics is, right? That's why a lot of these evil conquerors, whatever, part of me obviously talk shit about their evil deeds, but the other part of me understands where they're coming from because it is impossible to rule a nation or an army of thousands of men without breaking some moral boundaries. It is literally impossible. If you study ethics, if you study military science and warfare and decision making and economics, it is impossible because you're competing with other people. And the moment there's competition, the person who breaks the rules has an advantage, right? So for you to maintain your power, you're gonna have to break the rules eventually. Else, not only you're gonna lose power, but if you study history, what happens to people who lose power? They don't just go back to being like blacksmiths. No, they get tortured, they get killed, their family gets raped and enslaved. So yeah, at that point, if they could stay good while maintaining power, they would do it. But that's just not how the world works. Especially when you're a powerful man. When you're a powerful man and you're a leader of an army, you have to be ruthless. You have to be borderline evil because too many men are coming for you. And sometimes the best decision requires doing something fucked up. And history has shown us that over and over again. So hopefully that answers your question. Yeah. And that's also why eventually they create religions. These men create religions. They lie to the men. They'll do whatever it takes to prevent mutinies, right? Think of Alexander the Great in the middle of India, and his men decide to say, "Fuck this, we're not following you anymore." Like that's why religion is so important. It was created as a tool to manipulate and control men, prevent rebellion, prevent mutinies. Because how do you keep, let's say, an army of 100,000 men from just turning on you and killing you overnight? You just one man. You can't fight them all. You have to use fear. How to use fear? Religion. Next, Jaden Galinato is training Muay Thai from 7:30 to 9. Gonna fuck up my sleep schedule, or should I just go to 5 a.m. class? Let's see, training Muay Thai from 7:30 to 9. Should I just go to the 5 a.m. class? Go to the 5 a.m. class. If it's available, absolutely go to 5 a.m. class because Muay Thai from 7:30 to 9, it's gonna rev up your sympathetic nervous system. Your adrenaline is gonna be high. Your cortisol is gonna be high. Not to mention you're gonna be tired because it's later in the day, so you're not gonna be effective. Um, that's gonna set you up for more hits, more CTE risk. No. Just go to the morning class. Next, tapioca. Which muscle should I apply nucleus overload to in order to avoid losing the fight, even if I don't know how to fight technically? Well, first I learn how to fight, but obviously, if you don't want to get knocked out, definitely your neck. But your legs are crucial, not just for defense, right? To be quick and create this and stuff like that, but obviously for offense as well. So glutes are king. As much as I shit on glutes, I'm not gonna lie, for fighting and athleticism, glutes are king. So you could do nucleus on glutes, hamstrings. Believe it or not, glutes and hamstrings are more important for fighting than quads. What else? Obviously your shoulders, of course, but the power comes from your legs anyway. Your back, definitely, especially if you're in a grappling contact. So yeah, next. So yeah, like I would say, play to your strengths and look at speed. Jack Ibama, 195 centimeters, 108 kg, 24% body fat, ethnic origin Pashtun. Okay, lifting for 3 months, just turned 18. If I start MMA, is it possible to balance lifting weight 6 times a week while doing training 4 times a week? Or is it dependent on my recovery, and will I be able to get stronger, or am I doing too much cardio? Recovery in general is hard for me as my muscles get fatigued so easily. I don't know if that's because of my cardio or something else. Well, first, no, right? There's too many I don't know. First, know what your recovery is like. Know your resting heart rate. Know your heart rate variability, HRV. Know your grip strength, right? Just know the basics. As far as your cardio, same thing. Know your 1 mile run time. Know your VO2 max. Is it garbage? If it is, then improve it. Right? If your cardio sucks, you're gonna lose most fights, unless you have insane knockout power. So yeah, definitely increase your work capacity, increase your cardio. And as far as is it possible? Let me answer your first question. If I start MMA, is it possible to balance lifting weights 6 times a week while doing training 4 times a week? It is definitely possible. Is it easy? Of course not. It's gonna be hard, but it's definitely possible. You just have to dial in the 10 testosterone commitments, dial in recovery. Yeah, and like I always say, your training should support your fighting, right? So you should be lifting weights to get better at whatever it is your martial art is. Next, internet user. What is the best zone cardio for amateur boxing? Matches are 3 rounds, about 3 minutes. Well, so obviously you need to do all zones, right? You need to do obviously zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, all the way to zone 5. But definitely zone 2. Oh my God, definitely zone 2. Zone 3 to 5 is going to be great for increasing your VO2 max as fast as possible, right? But boxing, you gotta be a zone 2 monster, right? Because problem with zone 3 to 5 cardio, yes, it increases your VO2 max, uh, but it doesn't really help with duration, with sustaining hard activity for a long period of time. It just increases your VO2 max, right? So definitely zone 2 cardio, even though you gotta do all of them. As far as if I had to pick one, if I had to do a tier list of most important cardio zones for boxing or even MMA or even jiu-jitsu or whatever, I would say zone 2 is king. Let's see. People really underestimate how much fighting is dependent on cardio. Oh my goodness, especially if you're going against a person that's equally skilled. Oh my God, it's no longer about power at that point. It's no longer about technique. It's about cardio, man. The only time cardio doesn't matter is if you win in the first few seconds. Next, you always suggest us to learn to fight, at least to a point where we can beat 1 or 2 average men, correct? And not necessarily to a professional level, correct? So what do you think about Krav Maga? Assuming we don't want to be agonists, but just above average as you suggest. Yeah. So again, I told you guys before in so many polls that Krav Maga is extremely effective. The problem is, oh my God, man, you're gonna mess that person up, and you might have a lawsuit on your end, depending on what kind of move you pull out. Because yes, it's great for self defense, but it's also fucking great for changing a motherfucker's life forever. Whereas boxing and everything else, you're just knocking them out. You're knocking them out. That's it. Whereas with Krav Maga, you're doing some serious damage. But again, you guys know my criteria for learning a martial art, right? Long as you check the 3 boxes and the speed box, meaning you learning it as fast as possible with as little effort as possible, go for it. Just be careful with Krav Maga because it is so effective to the point where now you actually become it becomes a liability because you might hurt the person more. Because remember, the way the legal system works is they look at how proportional your response was to whatever the issue was, right? So the person probably tried to get to your face or pushed you, and then you pulled some Krav Maga shit. Oh my goodness, bro. The judge might rule in his favor, you know. But anyway, Emiliano Calzada, what do you think about Muay Thai? I bust nuts over Muay Thai. I feel like it's so underrated. Even though it's popular nowadays, thank God, I feel like it's so underrated. I've been doing Muay Thai 4 times a week for a year. Now I really enjoy it. I'm interested in trying Jiu-Jitsu, but I want to stick with Muay Thai a bit longer and get better before switching. Um, yeah. I think Muay Thai is S tier, in my opinion. Uh, Out of the 3 martial arts, I think everyone should learn, right? The striking, the grappling on your feet, and grappling on the ground. I think Muay Thai is S tier for the whole striking category, especially Muay Braun, but we're not going to talk about that because, careful using headbutts. But to answer your question, I'm interested in trying jiu-jitsu, but I want to stick with Muay Thai. It depends on what's your level on Muay Thai. If it's I use 1 to 10 for everything, right? So if you have above average on Muay Thai, right, above average, so let's say above 5 out of 10, so let's say 6 out of 10 or more, then yeah, you could start learning jiu-jitsu, right, until you bring it up to at least 5, because at that point you're already above average at Muay Thai, right? So learning more and more Muay Thai will come with diminishing returns because the moment you're above average at a martial art, you could keep learning it, but it's diminishing returns. It's really diminishing returns, if not the inverted U curve. Because the goal of martial arts, like I tell you guys, unless you're doing it for a living, the goal is to be able to defend yourself and your loved ones. That's it. So the moment you hit 6 out of 10, you could cruise, and then you could start bringing up your other weak points, right? There's no need to get to 9 out of 10 Muay Thai. Now you just wait, again, return on investment, right? When you 1 out of 10 in Muay Thai, level 1 out of 10, yes, the ROI of learning more Muay Thai is extremely good. Once you're 6 out of 10, the ROI is low. Again, unless you're competing, unless you actually like a professional fighter, which you're not. So yeah, move on to your next weakest point that you can learn as fast as possible. Let's see. And like I say, guys, jiu-jitsu people, you don't even have to go to a jiu-jitsu gym. You could learn that shit at home, right? When I was younger, we learned a lot of our stuff just watching videos and practicing on each other, fucking buying dummies and stuff like that. And then, yeah, if there's a gym near you, because I'm all about speed, right? If there's a gym, yeah, go to the gym. If not, learn at home, you know? Next, Seagull Van D. How do we end up in a world where power, strength, and technology is extremely unevenly distributed across cultures of the world? How did certain cultures, nations rise to advanced empires fast while others stayed being in poor, primitive tribes? Very easy. Number one is geography. A lot of books were written on that, but even if you study history from the beginning, number one reason is geography, by far. By far. The number one reason why some cultures and ethnic groups excelled more than others is geography. And it's not even close, right? Look at every empire. There's a reason why they all have. In fact, here's the mic drop. Look at every great civilization, virtually over 90% of them. What do they all have in common? Think. What does every great civilization slash empire have in common? Access to rivers, right? Hindu Valley, for the Egyptian Empire, the Nile, right? Mesopotamia, right? The Euphrates and the Tigris River, right? Look at all the great civilizations, the ones who literally bodied everyone else. One benefit they had was access to a river, access to the water, right? It makes transport easier, it makes trade easier, it makes everything easier. It makes getting water easier because obviously we die without water faster than we die without food, right? That's one. So that shows you geography, right? Who chose to wake up and have a river next to them? That's geography, right? What else? You also have to factor in distance from the equator because now you're further away from tropical illnesses. That's one of the reasons why Africa is screwed. Supremacists hate hearing that because they think it's an excuse when it's literally facts. We have the data. The closer you are to the tropics, the lower your IQ, mainly because of the disease burden. So you have that. You also have the animals, right? The further you are from the equator, around that latitude belt, you have access to, better access to domesticable animals. So sheep, cows, horses, all that stuff. Yeah, it's mainly geography. Now, of course, I could make a whole video on this explaining, all the different factors. But number one is geography. And after that, you have, obviously, geography also leads to a surplus, right? Farming, agriculture, all that stuff, which also plays a role. From there, you can move on to things like IQ and culture and trade and whatever, but that all sits on top of geography. Yeah, and eventually, some cultures, because they had that advantage, they developed better technology, better resources. There's also isolation. Isolation plays a huge role. Even in cultures that are in the north that have the good geography, quote unquote, whatever, if they're isolated, meaning huge mountains or deserts, or it's very hard for them to interact with other tribes, that's going to slow their growth. That was a huge factor as well. Because trade, just like war, is one of the biggest catalysts of GDP and, innovation. It's just mixing with different regions, learning their language, learning their weapons, learning their systems. So if you isolate it, goodbye. And we see this to this day. When we find these isolated tribes, these guys are like stuck in a fucking, Bronze Age and shit. Next, Stefan. Okay, I gotta wrap this up. Holy shit, this is over an hour. Stefan, how do I find out which martial art should I wait? How do I find out which martial art I should compete in? I love boxing, Muay Thai, and MMA, and can't decide if I want a career in martial arts or not. But also can't decide in which one I should compete in. 197 centimeters, 24 kgs, 19-year-old showing calisthenics and weight. Okay, so you see which martial art you should compete in. If that's your ikigai, sure. But you know what I'm going to tell you, right? Don't waste your time. If you don't have the genetics for something and the obsession for something, you're wasting your time. But if you did your ikigai and you find out that you check the boxes, go for it. And the reason why I tell people not to waste their time is because I'm being realistic, right? You have to balance idealism and realism. Genetics are a thing, guys. The studies have been done. Genetics are a thing, right? If you don't have a genetics for a sport, whether it's mental genetics, physical genetics, right? You are at such a massive disadvantage, right? Then you add the second factor, which is PEDs. Now you fucked even more. Imagine going to a field where you don't have the genetics for it, and the people you're going against on PDs. You're screwed. You're completely screwed. So that's why I say be very careful when you decide what your ikigai is, because at the end of the day, life is about competition. And you will get destroyed if you show up to a gunfight with a fucking rubber band slingshot type of shit. Now, let's assume that your ikigai is martial arts. You have the genetics for it. You have the mentality for it. I'll be honest with you. You act like a bitch a lot, Stefan. Again, this is me being brutally honest, tough love. You act like a bitch a lot. Obviously, you're making progress. I noticed you're very different than you were months ago, so I give you credit for that. But you're trying to go into martial arts with that kind of mindset you have, where you're always making excuses, always crying about depression or whatever. Good luck. You're gonna get eaten up. But like I said, you've been making progress lately. I noticed you hesitating to be defeated all the time, right? Because I definitely give you that warning, and I'm not joking. You keep doing that, I'm fucking kicking you out of the group, because I cannot have somebody who's constantly spreading. Life as a man is already too hard, so I cannot have someone who's constantly, oh, I'm depressed, I want to give up, No, especially when you did it in the beginning, we were all there for you, gave you advice, whatever. So if you just keep on doing it, then it's like, okay, what the fuck, right? Now you're just discouraging everyone. So tough love. This is just me being brutally honest, right? So I'll give you credit that you improving, but with the mindset you have now, martial arts will destroy you, man, because it is so hard. It is so hard, and it's not fair. I've seen, there were times I've seen people who learn a martial art in like 2 weeks, right? In 2 weeks, you already notice that their punching power is insane, their kicking power is insane, and you're like, wait, what the fuck? How did you, genetics? They have more fast twitch muscles or whatever. Reaction time is on fucking crack. Yeah, genetics are a thing, man, right? So you will have to work 6 months to get to the same level as somebody who does that in a week, right? So be very careful. Now, as far as you said I love boxing, Muay Thai, and MMA, and I can't decide if I want a career in martial arts or not. But I also can decide which one I should compete in. So assuming that this is your ikigai and that's what you want to do what I always say, right? First, play to your strengths. Look at your body type. I have videos coming up that I'm gonna do a tier list on which martial art you should pick for your body type. Look at your body type. Look at your strengths, right? Everything starts with your strengths, right? Know your strengths. Are you fast? Are you slow? Are you agile? Do you recover faster? Do you have great cardio? Right? That decides which martial art you should go into. Do you have a crazy reach? If you have a crazy long reach, if your ape index, right? Your ape index, which is your wingspan divided by your height, if it's crazy fucking high, then you already know what I'm gonna say, right? Pick a striking sport. Doesn't guarantee you're gonna win, but God, the advantage is insane. There's a reason why John Jones and Conor and most of these guys have crazy high ape indices. There are outliers like Khabib and Mike Tyson, but again, they're outliers. So look at your strengths first, and that will decide which martial art you should compete in. That's what I would do if I wanted to be a professional fighter, which I never would, but I would play to my strengths. And then from there, like I said, from there you pick the martial art that you're gonna learn the fastest based on your resources. Next, Davide Longo, best play to balance lifting weights and boxing. My strength in the gym is good, but my cardio is bad. Running is boring, so I'm thinking of starting boxing to compensate for my lack of cardio. That's funny because you're gonna need a lot of cardio for boxing. What's an ideal split for maintaining strength and becoming a better boxer slash cardio? 5'8", 156, 12% body fat, bench 297. Good bench, by the way. Holy fuck, your relative bench is insane. So yes, first of all, you're not gonna avoid cardio, especially for boxing. You're gonna have to have good cardio. And I know it's boring. We all hate it, but just do HIIT and then do zone 2. Both of them 2 to 3 times a week minimum. Best split is always going to be full body workout, guys. It's the best split for hypertrophy. It's the best split for strength. It's the best split for power. It's the best split for fighting. It's the best split for everything if you're natural. And you can obviously customize it based on your strengths and weaknesses. So if I have a client who's a fighter and he's like, hey, my weak points are legs, I'm going to customize his HSP full body split to, prioritize legs. If his weak point is abs, same thing. If his weak point is glutes, if his weak point is back, I'm going to customize his full body split to add more volume and frequency to back, right? So the best split is full body by far for many reasons, but one of the golden reasons, it gives you 4 full days of recovery. No other split beats that. And people underestimate how important those 4 days off are for growth and progressive overload. And then you could use those days to do your martial art or whatever. Let's see. And as far as cardio, yeah, you gotta improve your cardio. I'm sorry. Trust me, I've tried years ago. Me and my buddies would try practicing our boxing and our wrestling and whatever. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Especially in New York, like not having cardio, couldn't do shit. I remember we'll slap box, we'll try to wrestle after playing basketball, and if your cardio sucked, you were screwed. All your techniques went out the window. Next, Sid, what is the best combat sport slash combination of combat sports to dominate in street fights? I'd say wrestling plus Muay Thai, since wrestling teaches throws and takedowns better than Jiu-Jitsu. And street fights start standing. Also, don't want to roll around in the street fight too long, correct? Also, Muay Thai for throwing hands in addition to elbows in the clinch, plus some kicks depending on the situation. So I've answered this many times. So Muay Thai is king. Muay Thai is king for striking, of course. As far as grappling, again, wrestling or judo. And I say wrestling, I'm talking about freestyle wrestling, not Greco-Roman. And obviously the ground game is always Jiu-Jitsu. Jiu-Jitsu is king for the ground game. But street fights, I am not a big fan of Jiu-Jitsu for street fights. I've said this a million times. Unless you're only fighting one person. And again, you got to assume they're not going to poke your eye and pull out a knife, right? Which, it's not UFC. There's no rules. So I try to avoid getting on the ground. In fact, the reason why I even tell people to learn Jiu-Jitsu is for two reasons. One, in case you get on the ground somehow, you fucked up, you got tripped, or the person rushed you and then you were in the bar and then you tripped over like a chair or something, then boom, great. The second reason is if you're finding somebody bigger and stronger than you. These are the only two reasons I tell people to learn Jiu-Jitsu. Is if you're on the ground, for whatever reason, which you shouldn't be, but if you are. And number two, if you up against a person who's just bigger and stronger than you because size is king. That's it. Other than that, Jiu-Jitsu is fucking useless in a street fight. Because you're going against two people that will stump your fucking head out. So, and as far as standing, like I said, Muay Thai is king. For wrestling, you could pick, for standing grappling, you could pick judo, or you could pick freestyle wrestling. Does that answer your questions? Yeah. Muay Thai is so OP, man. There's so many reasons why it's OP. You got the elbows. You got the fucking clinch, right? People really sleep on the power of the clinch. Try clinching with somebody who doesn't know how to clinch. It's hilarious how useless they are. They can't do anything. They can't do shit, especially if they're a beginner. Also, and also the fucking leg kicks, man. Again, people underestimate how much leg kicks hurt. And believe it or not, the average person, even if your leg kicks are weak, right? Not weak, but if they're like average, the average person cannot take 2 to 3 leg kicks. And the moment they get that second, third leg kick, their whole stance changes, and now their brain freaks out because they don't know what to do, right? And now they push them open. They try to like back up, or they try to like stand in a more narrow stance, but now they don't know Muay Thai, so now they're open for a takedown. See, like Muay Thai is OP, right? If they don't check the leg kicks, you fuck up their leg, and now they have no power, right? They have no power in their punches. If you hit them with the leg kicks too many times, and now they're nervous, right? They're not gonna switch to fucking southpaw because they don't know anything about that, right? If you're fighting the average person, right? And now they're afraid, so now they're worried about the leg kicks, right? So now it's so funny because now like you could feint, right? And they're constantly flinching. After 2 to 3 leg kicks, everybody's plan goes out the window. You know how Mike Tyson says, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face? I say everyone has a plan until they get leg kicked 2 to 3 times. It's so funny to watch. And now they're open for so many things. They're open for takedowns. They're open for easy punches, overhands, feints. So yeah, Muay Thai is OP. Next, Ben Zarvis. I'm generally interested in learning how to fight. However, I fear the risk of concussion / CTE, even doing light sparring. I work as a software engineer and require to extensively use my cognition. Could you give me insight on whether it is worth getting into and how I could minimize the risk? Yeah, I tell everybody, guys, you should not get hit in the head. If MMA or combat sports is not your livelihood, if you're not trying to do this for a living, there is zero benefit to getting hit in the head. So whenever you're sparring, let the person know, hey, do not hit me in the head, no matter what. It is just not worth it, guys. And I don't want to hear, oh, no, it makes you, I heard the dumbest arguments, right? You want to get hit in the head, so you're ready for when you do get hit in the street. That's not how it works, guys. That's not how it works. It's not how the brain works. The brain does not like getting hit. You don't recover from too many headshots. There's a reason why a lot of GOATs, their careers goes to shit after a certain age. It's not age. It's the amount of damage they took to their heads, right? You end up getting that glass chin. So, yeah, do not get hit in the head, guys. Even if MMA is you're doing it for your livelihood, the only time you should get hit in the head is in the ring, right? Do not get hit in the head even when you're sparring. You guys really underestimate concussions, man. Guys, my motorcycle accident was what, in 2015, I think, right? That was 10 years ago, and I'm still feeling the effects. Told you the neurologist saw that shit when he scanned my brain, and that was one concussion from that motorcycle accident. God knows if that made things worse because of all the other stupid hits I took to the head when I was younger and play fighting with my friends, you know, or playing basketball when I got hit in the head so many times with elbows and like when you're playing defense and the person is like posting up and then they're holding the ball with two hands and they move their elbows and hit you in the head. It happened to me so many times. So do not get concussions. Next, we almost done. David Statura. I have been training MMA for 2 years, but now I want to fully focus on building muscle. Should I stop doing MMA or just do MMA less, like once a week? Okay. So again, if you're above 5 out of 10 in your fighting sport, in that case in MMA, if you're above 5 out of 10, meaning you're above average, then yes, you could lay off the brakes a little bit and build muscle, lose fat, work on your VO2 max, work on your power. Assuming that you're not doing MMA for a living. Even if you're doing MMA for a living, the moment you reach about 5 to 10, the diminishing returns are there, right? So every number you go for like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you're getting less and less. The ROI is smaller, right? Again, assuming that you're also fighting for self-defense and stuff like that. So it's best the moment you cross above 5 out of 10, you got to start bringing up the things that you 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10, or 3 out of 10 in, right? You should be above 5 out of 10 in most of the important things that matter as a man, right? So that's how I decide what to do next. I try to pick what's most important. I try to bring that to 5 out of 10 or more. The moment I reach above average, now I look at the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, so that I'm balanced. Let's see. Now again, there's always one thing that should be 10 out of 10, but that's your ikigai. That's the only exception. Sitting bull. Last question. I am not strong by any means. My lifts are pathetic when compared to the average lifter or athlete. My bench is 1.1 times my body weight. My squat is 1.3 times my body weight. My deadlift is 1.8 times my body weight. But what surprises me is the fact that I have crazy punching power. Yeah, there goes the genetics I told you guys. I'm not just bragging about it. Many people I have sparred with and coaches who have held the mitts for me have all pointed it out. Yeah, it's the thing, guys. It's the thing. I've seen it my whole life. Some people have crazy punching power without even training. I've also killed quite a few people in one punch. Sounds corny as shit, typing it out. Can you please explain what other factors come into play? Since it's definitely not my strength, that explains my punching power. So it's mainly neural. So there's two things, right? Obviously, there's more than two things, but it's mainly fast twitch genetics, right? And when I say fast twitch genetics, I'm talking about the muscles involved in punching power because not everyone has great fast twitch genetics in all of their muscles, right? We have distribution. Some muscles are more slow twitch than others, even on the same person. So obviously, some people have great punching power because they have better, faster genetics in their fucking hip flexors, their fucking obliques, their abs, their glutes. Don't get me started on glutes. Their hamstrings. So you have the muscle physiology element. You also have the brain element. Some people are just better at recruiting higher threshold motor units, right? Crazy speed, crazy power. But yeah, those are usually the two things, right? Neural factors and muscle physiology. All right, that's it, guys. Join the school community before price goes up. Buy the ebooks to support the channel and hire me for coaching. I'm out.